Hey everyone, it's Lexi. So in today's video, I'll be sharing with you all the books that I ended up reading in the month of November. So November was a pretty good reading month for me. There was one miss that started up in the beginning, but after that, I really enjoyed everything that I read this month. I was planning on reading more, but I feel like I just always forget how hard it is to read when you have like family visiting for like Thanksgiving and all that. And so for the solid week of Thanksgiving, I didn't get any reading done, but you know what, that's okay. I was enjoying my family. It was the first time they've been able to come and visit since the pandemic for the first time in 2 years, so we were very excited about that. But yeah, besides that, I did manage to enjoy most of what I've read this month, which is really exciting. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So starting out, I first have A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman, and I'm a big Fredrik Backman fan. I love his Beartown soon-to-be trilogy, and so I was really everyone is like, oh, this book is so good, this book is so good, so I just finally picked it up after several months of having this on my shelf. And I will say that I was actually very disappointed with this. I feel like because it had so much potential that there were a lot of things that I was like, people were okay with this. So it follows this old man named Ove, who is like the grumpiest man in the world, and these new neighbors move in across the street and they kind of form an unlikely friendship, but trigger warnings for suicide and suicidal thoughts, so just be aware of that when you're going into it. It's kind of very similar to Up, and the way this man is described, you think he's like this old man who's so grumpy and everything like that, but he's only 59. So it was that was one thing where I was like, okay, I think they should have aged him up maybe 20 years or so, because that felt a little bit off. But I felt like this was just very predictable, and I understand that Ove as a character is very angry and bitter, but there's just so much fat phobia in here, fat shaming, just kind of racism. And I know that's Ove as a character, but it was offensive reading it, just how he was describing things, because it was just this one person, only was described by how much they weigh and all this stuff, which I found to be very offensive. And I understand that's supposed to be Obe's character, but I felt like it was at the point where it was crossing the line even for this, that it was uncalled for, and I just didn't really enjoy it. I was actually really upset that I did not like this, because I love Beartown and Us Against Them and all these things. Yeah, so it even says here is that if there was an award for most charming book of the year, this novel would win hands down. I don't agree with that. I think it was very predictable. I didn't find it very funny or anything, and it just got to the point where it was not really realistic. It was offensive. It was just all these things. So I don't understand why this book was so deeply loved. I had a lot of problems with it, and I felt like it had a lot of potential to actually be a pretty decent read. I was I think because I was in my mind comparing it to Up, which I think does this a little bit better. And also that character's, the age demographic that I would think this character would be at, as opposed to a 59-year-old grumpy man. But yeah, I had a lot of problems with this, and I'm really disappointed because, like I said, I'm a huge fan of this author, and I feel like this is the book besides Beartown that he is known for, and yeah, I just did not like it. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read the Tales and Teacups book club picks for the months of November and December, so I'll have everything linked down below if you want to participate in the book club throughout to December. And I'm happy to say that we ended the year on the good note. So this one we ended up reading was The Orphan Collector by Ellen Marie Wiseman. This takes place during the Spanish flu pandemic in Philadelphia, so it draws a lot of parallels to kind of what we have been going through for nearly 2 years now. And so it follows this girl named Pia, who is from a German immigrant family, and her father is off at war fighting for America, and her mother ends up passing away from the Spanish flu, so she is left taking care of her twin brothers. But when she goes out to find food for her and her siblings, her twin brothers end up being taken by this woman who is very xenophobic. She blames the immigrants for the reason why her son passed away, because he also contracted the Spanish flu and she was not able to get into the hospital because it was so overcrowded, and she blames the immigrants for this. So she thinks that she can purify these boys because they're still young and make them not have their German tendencies. So it follows Pia's struggles with trying to figure out what happened to her brother. And this book was really amazing. Like, I was like really like pleased with how much I enjoyed this, and I think a lot of it too is just how we were like, as like a reader, it's like everyone now has gone through a pandemic, you can draw a lot of parallels to what was going on over 100 years ago, and I think that also makes it like have you have like a special connection reading this because you've lived through something similar. And the author does not shy away from the kind of the harshness of this, you know, virus that was going around. Like, she's very explicit, she's very blunt, she does not sugarcoat anything, and I think that makes it much more intense and you are really into it, because not only do you have a connection to like a similar world event, but you are just so engrossed in this because we've lived through something similar. And I was really heartbreaking to read from Pia's story. I just like was so heartbroken for her, because she just had one obstacle after another, and she blames herself for what her, you know, her siblings have gone missing, and she blames herself, and we kind of see her kind of go through all these struggles, and it was just totally heartbreaking, but you just root for her the whole time. Even though everything she's gone through is just terrible, you just can't help but root for her and just really feel for her situation. The reason why I knocked it down a star is because I do feel like the ending was a bit rushed, and I didn't think like it was that, like, I felt like we had so much build up and then it like kind of resolved itself in like 20 pages, which I think was just, yeah, it was just too quickly. I think like if we got maybe a little 40 pages out of the ending, it would have been fantastic. But overall, this is an amazing historical fiction novel, and I really liked it. Like I said, it drew a lot of parallels to what we're going through now, and it was interesting. Had I read this before the pandemic, I don't think I would have had that emotional connection to it as I would have, like, that I have now. So next up, I ended up picking up The Good Sister by Sally Hepworth, and this is one that again has been on my shelf for a while. And when this book came out, like, it was everywhere on Goodreads, like it was like basically a lot of places, and so I was like, and it has pretty good reviews on Goodreads too, so I was really excited to pick this one up, and it's fairly short too, it's just over 300 pages, but yeah, it was definitely worth all the hype, and like, because I saw this book everywhere when it was coming out. Sorry, I just did a big sneeze, but the book starts out with the two sisters. You do get both of their perspectives. We get journal entries from Rose, and she's writing them to her therapist, basically talking about her and her sister's, you know, relationship, their kind of hard upbringing and everything there. And then we also get the kind of narration that is from Fern. So when Fern finds out that her sister cannot, it's very difficult for her to conceive a child, she decides that she wants to, you know, have a child to give to her sister, and it kind of goes off from there. But this book, like, I think it's best to not know too much about like what the plot is going on. I think you just need to really dive right in. One thing I really did like about this is the kind of autism spectrum representation. So Fern and this other character that you get introduced to later in the novel are on the autism spectrum. They have some like light sensory issues with noises that are too loud, smells, kind of those type of things, and I felt like the author did a really good job at doing a really good representation of it that was really respectful and showed it in a realistic way. And Fern was such a character that you can't help but root for, and after everything she's kind of going through, you can't really you just feel for her. And so yeah, she was just such a really intriguing character to read from, and just her experience and just how she's navigates the world with some of these kind of obstacles that she deals with. Like, I felt like she was just a really great character, and I felt like it had really good representation there as well. And I loved the ending, even though I was able to kind of pick up where this was going kind of pretty early on. I still nevertheless really enjoyed it. Like I still, even though I kind of was able to pick up on it, and you do get clues kind of throughout, if you're paying attention, they'll be, you know, you'll be able to find them. But I really enjoyed that, even though the ending was like, I was like, okay, I can kind of see where this is going. I still really enjoyed it. It was so like intense, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. But yeah, it was just a lot of fun. If you like kind of suspense, kind of unreliable narrators and like all these things, and trying to pick up clues throughout the narrations, I think this is the novel for you. Like I said, it deserves all the hype because I really enjoyed this. I thought this was really well done, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun. It was a crazy ride, and if you're looking for like a nice kind of fun suspenseful thriller that's not very graphic or anything, just kind of something that's a little bit more on like the PG-13 end, not opposed to like Gone Girl as the other end of the spectrum, then I think this is a good book for you. And lastly, to finish out the month, I ended up picking up the Feel Your Way Through poetry collection by Kelsea Ballerini. I'm a big Kelsea Ballerini fan. I really love her music, so I was really excited when she announced that she would be having like this poetry collection come out. And poetry for me is not something like I really tend to enjoy, but I figure I'm like, I like her lyrics, so maybe this will be a little bit kind of easier to you know, read and enjoy. So yeah, I will say that I really enjoyed this. Like I said, for someone who's not really into poetry, I did really enjoy this. I do like, I think part of it too is like I don't know how to read it in my head, if that makes sense, like where to pause. Like I don't know, I just don't know how to like read it in my mind. I think that's part of it. But yeah, I really like this. It kind of, it's broken down into like 4 parts of like childhood, you know, teenage years, you know, like all those things. And so you kind of grow up with her through her different experiences. And yeah, I really liked it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Like I thought this was really well done. There were some, like I think my favorite poem in here was Kangaroo, which talks about her struggle with an eating disorder. So there are trigger warnings for gun violence and eating disorders in here, but I think it was really interesting. She gets really personal in here, and I think this is definitely one that if they eventually have this available as like an audiobook from the library, because she reads it, so you'll be able to kind of understand like the cadence of it. For me at least, that would be, I think, a good one to read or listen to via an audiobook. But yeah, I thought this was really well done. I couldn't find any like tabs to like tab the ones I like, but definitely Kangaroo is the one that stands out to me. But yeah, I think like if any person can find something to relate to in here, just kind of with our like internal dialogue and struggles and like all these different things, I feel like a lot of people can find something that they can relate to or have had similar experience to. So yeah, I was like I said, I really like this. Yeah, it was really good actually. So if you like kind of aren't really into poetry, but if you like her music, I think you will like this poetry collection. Like I said, I was stepping outside my comfort zone and I really enjoyed it. So that's it guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of the books that you read this month were and all that fun stuff. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye guys.